What do you do when you have to do a project, but you don't have the resources available? Do you wait until you get the resources? Do you cut corners, do the best you can, or do you give up completely? Hello and welcome. My name is Joe, and I bought 5 acres of raw land in the high desert, and I am building an off-grid homestead. Today, I'll talk to you about the very first project I did. When I first moved out here, I didn't have a pickup truck, and the only tools I had were a drill, a jigsaw, and those all-purpose toolkits you can get. Basically, apartment life tools. You know, things that are good for hanging a picture frame or fixing a lamp. But I was really eager to start my homesteading life. So I went out and bought a couple of rabbits and some cages to transport them in. But these were pretty small and my rabbits are pretty big, and it really wasn't a long-term solution. So I needed to build something to give them a permanent home.
At the time, I was driving a mini SUV, so fortunately I could still carry a couple of 8-foot 2x4s. I would just have to slide them all the way into the dashboard. I could also carry about 4 bags of concrete at a time.
My quick and dirty design here was just an 8 foot by 16 foot fenced in area.
I needed the post hole digger, so I bought that. I also bought a portable generator for any power needs that my solar system couldn't handle. So armed with my post hole digger, a jigsaw, a drill, hammer, level, and a tape measure, I got started. I dug down about 24 inches. Well, that was my goal anyway. This is pretty rocky soil, so if I was only able to get about 18 inches, I'd let it stay. But if I could only go about 12 inches, I would just dig the hole wider. That way I'd have the same strength. The ground here is a sand and gravel mix. Once it breaks up, it's pretty easy to dig. It's not sticky or clumpy or heavy like some clay soils can be. But it can be difficult to break it up in the first place. It's difficult to get your shovel to bite in the beginning. And that's why I bought one of those digging bars.
This comes in very handy. You know, it's got this little tamper on the end. You know, you can compact soil a little bit if you need to. But the key is this sharp end. You know, you can use it to get under rocks a little bit. You can twist it to loosen a rock, or you can use a leverage. You're not going to bend this, so you can put your whole weight on it to pop those rocks out.
A typical bag of concrete at a hardware store is a very high strength concrete, either Sakrete or Quikrete. If you look at the packaging, it's usually about 4,000 psi concrete. I really didn't need that for my little rabbit pen. I'm just holding a couple of 2x4s up. So to save money, I mixed it half and half with my soil here, which is basically sand and gravel. So I'm just cutting the strength a little bit without changing the makeup of the concrete too much.
After I set all the posts, I just leveled the top of the building. But the ground isn't level, so the building is shorter on one side than it is on the other. You can see here, I have to duck my head a little bit when I'm at the back of the pen, and but at least I can get through the door fine without ducking. I've got a double layer of fencing here. I've got uh, thicker fencing to keep the bigger predators out. And then I have a layer of poultry netting to keep the smaller animals out and my rabbits in. I think rabbits can chew through poultry netting, but they can't get through the bigger sheep fencing here. And later on, I added some half-inch hardware cloth because I had a huge problem with rattlesnakes. So it's helping. They're still getting in somehow.
The poultry netting bends and runs out along the ground about 12 inches. I put a shallow layer of dirt over it. This keeps the predators from digging. When their claws catch on that poultry netting, it's very painful and they give up digging very fast. The door is just a couple of hinges, a latch, and a 2x4 frame with the fencing stapled to it. Because of the weather and airborne predators, I needed a roof. Because I didn't have a pickup, all I was able to do was use a tarp to block the sun and the rain. Tarps out here last at most 6 months. I've gone through 2 batches of tarps already, and you can see in the back here how it's just shredding in the sun. Once I got a pickup truck, I switched to plywood. But the wind is so fierce around here, it's slowly pulling the roof off, and you can see these nails are coming out. I use screws in a few places, but the screws just snap. On future projects, I learned to crisscross my nails, and they hold up much better. And just a little tip for you, buy quality tools. I broke 3 hammers before I finally bought this solid steel one. Well, it's held up for a year pretty well. It was very inexpensive, and it's all I could manage at the time. But I look at it as a temporary structure, and I've got some improvements planned for it. It's a very humble rabbit pen. I can see people snickering a little at it when they see it. But I don't let that bother me, as long as the rabbits are happy. That's all that really counts. The lesson I learned from this is not to let the lack of tools or material or anything else stop me. I just do what I can, because I can always improve it or fix it later. The important part is to get started. The world isn't going to wait for me to catch up. The predators or the storms aren't going to let me call a timeout. I've got to protect those rabbits now. Well, thanks for watching. In future videos, I'll talk about my other projects as well as my battle against predators. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting. And I'll see you then.